excellent.
It all began with just a dream and $32 in 1891. What was equivalent to $1,000 today, William Wrigley Jr. moved from Philadelphia to Chicago with a dream in his heart to go into business for himself. Now, with that $32 in his pocket, he began a very small business selling Wrigley's Scouring Soap. Now, to convince customers to buy the soap, he had this incentive offer that he would actually offer baking powder for free. Now, I don't know if this was good or bad at the time, if this was encouraging or discouraging, but what he soon discovered was that the baking powder was more popular than his soap. So he exited the soap business and quickly entered the baking powder business. Now, he continued this strategy of giving customers this incentive to do business with him, only this time he gave customers 2 packs of chewing gum for each can of baking powder that they purchased. Now, as luck would have it, once again, he was forced to change his business because the gum became more popular than the baking powder. Now, fast forward to today, many of us have grown up, or maybe you still do, chewing spearmint, double mint, juicy fruit, or Big Red. Now, I know I'm going to date myself here, but I'm going to ask you the question. How many of you remember the classic Big Red chewing gum commercial and the classic jingle that was around for decades? Many of you, this will be a blast from the past. Some of you, this is the first time that you will have seen or heard this. This is the Big Red commercial.
No little cinnamon gum freshens breath longer than Big Red.
So kiss a little longer, stay close a little longer, hold tight a little longer, longer with Big Red. That Big Red freshness lasts right through it. Your fresh breath goes on and on. While you chew it, say goodbye a little longer, make it last a little longer. Give your breath long-lasting freshness with Big Red.
That takes me back to when I was a kid, sitting in the living room and the big console televisions. Does anybody remember that? Now, regardless if you know the Wrigley name from the chewing gum or this jingle or maybe the iconic Wrigley Field, but what began with $32 and that dream in his heart is still going strong today. As a matter of fact, the Mars Company acquired Wrigley in 2008 for a reported $23 billion with a B. That's a lot of chewing gum. Now, I want to ask you this question, and I want to bring it personal to you. What have you stopped before you've even started? Today, we're going to talk about the business of beginning. And I want to identify your barriers for beginning and ways that we can break them down. Welcome to the Mind Your Business podcast, the podcast for whatever business is on your mind. Let's get started.
Well, that's excellent.
Well, thank you for joining me again for another episode of the Mind Your Business podcast. I really hope this is bringing value to your life. And if it is, will you do me a favor? I want to ask you to like, subscribe, and share this with other people because I desperately want to add as much value to as many people as possible. You know, there's countless success stories like that of William Wrigley. I mean, even today, many of you have probably ordered from Amazon, a company that began in a garage selling used books. There's a high probability that you're either watching or listening to this podcast from an Apple device, another company that began in a garage. And so as I think about it, I'm beginning to think that everybody needs to move their hopes and their dreams into a garage and just begin there. But my question for us today is this. What dreams and desires are drowning deep inside of you? I mean, what is buried that needs to begin? And ultimately, and most importantly, what are the barriers that keep you from beginning? Because I believe that there are dreams and desires that are literally drowning inside of you. They're gasping for air. That something has been buried, this hope and this dream and this desire has been buried deep inside of you that desperately needs to begin. There's just some barriers. There's some reasons that you don't want to step out and you don't want to take that step in beginning. I'm convinced that there are more amazing businesses like Amazon or like Apple. There's more success stories like The Rock, who began with $7 in his pocket, that is now an entertainment giant in his very own $7 Productions. I believe that you have a book to write. You have a goal to achieve. You have a project that you so desperately want to accomplish. But in order for you to ever begin, we have to break those barriers. So today, I want to take a look quickly at some of the most common barriers that keep people from beginning. And what I want to do is I want you to take inventory of your life to see if any of these barriers are actually keeping you from beginning in your very own life. And so here's the first one that we'll talk about is the fear of failure. I think this is probably the biggest reason that most people refuse to begin because they have a fear of failure. No one wants to take a chance and fall flat on their face, even though most of all of the greats of all of history have failed. As a matter of fact, the greatest lessons that we can learn actually come through failure. But you see, a fear of failure leads to self-doubt, and self-doubt paralyzes you. And when you experience being paralyzed, paralyzation causes an inability to move, which prevents you from beginning. And I think somebody has tried something, and you have this innate fear of thinking, what if they don't like it? What if they don't show up? What if nobody buys it? What if nobody watches it? What if nobody responds well? I mean, I'm going to be honest with you and just transparent. Even in starting this podcast, I said, who's going to listen? Who's going to watch? I mean, there's so much content out there. To me, it just almost felt overwhelming to start just because of the amount of content that was out there. But the reality is, if I could add value just to you, it was worth it to me. And you can't let the fear of failure paralyze you from the potential that you have in your life. Another one that will keep you from beginning is your comfort zone. Oh man, that comfort zone. We love to stay in our comfort zone. Let's get where we're safe. Let's stay where we have a safety net. Let's don't rock the boat. Let's don't take a big risk or a big chance. 80% of people resist change. If you're feeling that, like, oh, I don't want to get out of this comfort zone. This is the way that I do it. I've never done it any other way. How will I do anything any different? How will I learn all of that new stuff and the technology and the social media? And what about all the payment systems and all the artificial intelligence and all the technology? I mean, there's so many questions. But 80% of people feel the same way that you do. As a matter of fact, only 11% of people will actually make a lifestyle change after being told they could prolong their life or restore their health. If their doctor came to them and said, if you'll make these lifestyle changes, they can prolong your life or restore your health, and only 11% of people will actually make that change because they are comfortable in doing what they do. I love when Tony Robbins says that change is inevitable, but progress is optional. Change is inevitable, but progress is optional. In other words, change is going to happen regardless if you want it to or not. Now, I know some of us don't believe that, but let me prove it to you. It is every day, every one of us, even right now in this moment, we're getting older. As you breathe, for every minute that passes, you're getting older. Like it or not, age is coming for you. Now, here's some signs that your life is changing and you're getting older. Think about if any of these are true for you. Your doctor is younger than you are. Have you been to the doctor and you went, oh, wow, I'm older than this kid. Who is this? This is my doctor? Or your books, they're all now in large font. Or your phone screen is now magnified, so you got the words really big so you can read it. Or elastic waistbands are an essential part of your wardrobe. I know I'm stepping on that one there. Your kids are telling you what to do, and you're actually letting them do it. Those are all signs that life is changing. Change is happening all around us. Nothing good happens when we stay in our comfort zone. The only way you're going to begin is to step out of that comfort zone and take a chance. Another one is a lack of confidence. It's a lack of confidence. For whatever reason, someone has said something to you, you've had a bad experience, maybe you've had a failure in the past, and you just don't have the self-confidence to get yourself together and to be bold enough to begin. And if you don't have the confidence, you end before you begin. If you think you lack the necessary skills or the resources or the opportunities, you will never begin. The reality is that no one knows it all. Nobody. Regardless of who you're watching on social media and going, I wish I had a business like that. I wish I could lead like that. I wish I had that ability. I wish I had that character. I wish I had that personality trait. Whatever it is that you want to begin in your life, no one has everything together regardless of how it may appear. I have been speaking publicly to crowds for well over 20 years in all different kinds of environments, crowds of all sizes, for all different reasons. And I can tell you that I still have a lack of confidence. From time to time, I just think, I can't do this. What am I about to do? But you just have to square your shoulders back and you have to be willing to begin. Don't let a lack of confidence stop you from chasing the purpose and the potential that's on your life. Another one is finances. Now, this is a big one for a lot of people, and I completely understand this. Because when you're worried about the finances and, that's a reason, it's like, well, I can't. Well, you're focused on what you don't have. So right in that moment when you're counting your pennies, you're looking at the bank account and you're thinking of all the resources that it's going to take to get this business off the ground, to get this organization started, to get this effort moving, you think, well, I don't have enough. Well, if you asked Wrigley with $32 in his pocket, or if you asked The Rock with $7 in his pocket, they would respond, we didn't have enough either. Honestly, you'll never have enough. You will never have enough to begin. See, many people think that they can't do anything or they can't begin until they have all of the desired finances. Now, obviously, resources are very helpful, and they certainly make things a lot easier. But I would argue, in my experiences, that the lack of resource can also be a benefit. See, we think what we don't have is actually a detriment to us. And until we get everything we need in advance, then we're not going to begin. But a lack of resources, it actually forces creativity. Lack will force creativity in your mind, in your life, in your organization, in your movement. And creativity is what brings innovation. Every time there was a great innovation, it came from a lack. There was something missing. Something wasn't being done. Something wasn't being served. Something could be better. And it was that lack that created the innovation. And what you have to do is learn to leverage the lack so that you can be creative. And when you see what you're missing, and then you can put that to work for you and you can become creative, it can actually be an asset to you as you step out and to begin, because you can do something fresh and something that has never been done before. Another reason people won't begin is external pressures. And this one is just a fact of life. You have a mortgage, you have family obligations, maybe you've got a lot of school loans and you're thinking, how am I going to pay for all of this? You just got too many things that are counting on you. You've got all these external things. You've got a job to go to and people are counting on you. And you begin to say things like, I waited too late in life. I should have done this when I was younger. I should have done this when I didn't have as many people counting on me. I should have done this when I didn't have as much responsibility. And then you begin to feel these external pressures and it squeezes the life out of you. And where you used to dream, now it just becomes this quiet whisper of what could have been, what might have been. And it just causes your dreams to fade. And for many of you, those dreams have become nightmares because you're missing out on what could have been. Don't let the pressure stop you from what you could be accomplishing. Another one is past experiences. Man, this is a big one for so many people. When I ask people what's stopping you from stepping out, they'll say, well, I've made some mistakes in the past and I tried that one time and it didn't succeed and didn't fail. And everyone around me said, I'm not going to support you again. I'm not going to back you again. We're not going to fund another venture. And you've got yesterday that's speaking louder than today. And I want to encourage you not to live in yesterday, but to live in today. Don't let yesterday stop you from what's ahead of you. Learn to leverage that. Learn to leverage that failure. Learn to leverage your yesterday to help you learn lessons, walk in wisdom for today. Because these barriers will stop you from accomplishing all of your potential and for living out your purpose. So how many of these barriers, maybe one or maybe many of these, are keeping you from beginning? Could you identify one or many that are keeping you from chasing the dream, the purpose, and the passion that's on your life and beginning to do something new? Well, now that we know, I want to break these barriers. I want to help you begin to break these barriers down with a very simple 3-step plan that will help you start. And the first thing that you need to begin and to help you start is to know where you are. You just simply need to be able to define where you are. You can't get to where you want to go without first knowing where you are. Let me explain. Before smartphones, some of us remember, if you called someone, maybe back in the day, you got a quarter, you popped it in the payphone, and you called someone and you asked for directions. What's the first thing that they would ask you on the other line? They would say, well, where are you? You didn't ask for directions and then them begin to immediately give you some direction to the end destination. No, they needed to know where you were because the starting point was a crucial piece of information. It was important. And then I can remember the development of MapQuest when you got online and you put in your starting destination and where you wanted to go, and it would print the map for you. And then we had GPS. But both of those, regardless, they still wanted to know where we were starting from. Now, today, we don't do that. We just use our phones, right? They can guide us in real time and tell us exactly where we need to go, regardless if we're walking, if we're taking a bus, if we're on a bicycle, if we're in a car. I mean, it's amazing. But it doesn't work unless you give your phone access to the GPS to know exactly where you are at all times. Regardless of the technology, what all of those things have in common is that they all have a starting point. And for your life, it's important to be able to identify exactly where you are. And I think there's some key areas that will help you because this will help you in your total approach to beginning your foundation. Like, for example, where are you emotionally? I mean, have you ever stopped to really think as an individual, how do I handle my emotions? Are my emotions in a healthy place that I can step out and I can begin? Can I handle this pressure? Are my emotions mature enough, ready enough? Am I prepared emotionally to be able to step out and begin to do it? How is my mental health? Where is your mental health? Are you finding ways to decompress? Are you finding ways to cope and to be able to express and to take care of your mental health? Where are you physically? I mean, have you had a checkup? Have you been to the doctor? Are you exercising? Are you eating right? Are you getting enough rest? I mean, all of these things, because your physical health has an impact, a toll on everything else. Where are you spiritually? I think that one's important. For my life personally, that's the foundation of my life. Where I am spiritually in my relationship with Jesus. That guides everything I do. In business, it guides my integrity and my character, the way I treat people. Leadership principles all come from a spiritual place. I mean, all of these things I get from my spiritual journey. Where are you relationally? How's your relationship with your spouse or with your kids, your grandkids, your co-workers, your employer, your employees? I mean, the people that are the closest to you, your family, your friends. Are your relationships healthy? What about financially? We talked about resources and people are afraid to begin because of finances. Well, how are your finances? Do you have good checks and balances, policies and procedures for your personal finances? And if the question that you've asked yourself, this inventory in any of these areas, if you find that it's not healthy, well, it shouldn't prevent you from beginning. It should just help you get a really good foundation as you begin to launch yourself out. Because knowing where you are, the health of your foundation and your starting point is crucially important to where you're going. Knowing where you are, it actually helps you to even understand your motivation for beginning to begin with. So you can define the why behind the what very early on. And that why component is your purpose. I mean, it's the heartbeat behind why do you want to do it? What's motivating you to begin this new career? Doing that project, writing that book, starting that business or that organization, whatever it may be. When you define that why, that purpose component, well, what you begin to do, it helps you to push forward. See, there's great accountability for sacrifices that you're about to make. Because when you remember the why behind the what, it gives you the accountability to push through and to pay for the sacrifices that you're going to make, because there are sacrifices to every beginning. You can also discover if your motives for starting, when you define that why, are they pure or are they impure? Like, are your motives pure? Are they healthy or are they unhealthy? See, this can save you a lot of heartache in the future when you can begin to find this stuff from the very beginning, at the very foundation. It also helps you identify your strengths, your weaknesses, your passions and your pains. It can even identify areas that you may need assistance with as you progress. You may see some areas where you see, okay, I've got some weaknesses here, and this is not my strongest suit. So as I begin at this stage of the process and the journey, as we take this trip, I'm going to need somebody with me who is stronger in this area. This may be more passionate about this, who can help me with the pains of the process. So when you really identify where you are, it really helps get you started in a very healthy way. And then as you're starting, when you define the starting point, knowing where you are, it becomes a great marker for even measuring progress. And I think this is crucially important, because sometimes in beginning, we are so, we're running fast. We're burning the candle at both ends. I mean, we're pushing hard. And you kind of forget along the way that you need to be measuring that progress. And so when you know where you are, it becomes a marker for measuring that process. And it's actually a great way to assess where you are, is to know where you've been. So as you're learning this definition of starting point, when you look back, it really becomes a great source of encouragement on those difficult days. Now, I always say this a lot for myself, is that I may not be where I want to be, but at least I'm not where I was. And the only way I know that is because I can look back to where I began. And had I not defined my starting point, where I was in life, in all of these things, it wouldn't be an encouragement to me on the difficult days when I want to quit. But I can look back and go, okay, I've made progress, so I can keep going. So know where you are. Another way to help break the barriers of beginning is to know where you're going. And again, this is common sense, but it's equally as important. That if you know where you are, you need to know where you're going. So if you've identified where you are, in order to take the next step, you obviously know where you're going. Because without a destination, you're literally just driving. You're just taking a Sunday drive. I mean, you're aimlessly cruising around. You're going through the process. You're in the driver's seat, and you're going through all the motions, but you're headed nowhere. You're still putting in effort to do the exact thing. You just don't have a destination. So you have to define where you're going. And when you've identified where you are, you actually may have discovered that you don't like where you're headed, because that's another benefit of doing that. In defining where you're going and where you are, you may find there's a disconnect in your destination. And a Chinese philosopher once said this: if you don't change direction, you may end up where you're going. And if you think about that, it's simple, but it's true. If you don't like the direction that you're going, you may need to change it. If you don't change it, that's where you're going to go. This is why it's important to define where you're going. And the truth is that most people, they don't plan to end up at the wrong destination at all. You wouldn't ask most people who failed at something and never started back, and they're living in regret, or they're living in their mistakes, or whatever the case may be. You don't ask them and they'll go, oh, this was the plan all along. Yeah. I didn't want to be successful. I didn't want to achieve anything. I didn't want to do anything great with my life. I didn't want to reach my potential. No one's going to say that. They didn't plan to end up at the wrong destination. But it's also true that most people don't plan to end up at the right destination. You see, good intentions won't get you to your desired destination. It's the daily decisions that determine your destination. And the daily decisions, they need to be intentional. So you need a plan. So as you begin to define where you're going, the best way to do that is to get a plan. And I talk about this a lot because I think most of us are just aiming through life, hoping to land somewhere, maybe even remotely close to where we want to go. But you need a plan. And a good plan has clear goals. Clarity is so important. You need a clear destination. And so you go define, definitive, here is where I'm going. And a good plan, you get attainable action steps, little tasks that need to be completed in order to reach that objective. And at each step, they should be clearly defined, and you should put deadlines on them. Because if you don't put a deadline on it, Monday's always coming. I can remember growing up, my mom would always say, dieting and things. She said, well, Monday's coming. We'll start again on Monday. And many of us, we live that way. We begin January with a good New Year's resolutions of all the things that we're going to do. And 3 weeks in, we've already missed it. So we say, well, we'll do it again next January. But you have to put some deadlines on it because a good plan, it needs to be measurable. You have to be able to measure your progress. You need those metrics that keep you moving forward in the right direction. And those metrics will help you to do that. Another thing that I would say about breaking barriers from the beginning is to know who you're taking. Know who you're taking. To break the barriers of beginning, it's incredibly important to know who you're taking. Every road trip is better with friends. Every road trip is better with people that you want to spend time with. But here's the difficult truth. Those you carry on the journey with you are incredibly important. And so the question to ask yourself is, are the people that you've surrounded yourself with now, are they always wanting to stop and sightsee? Or do they want to stop and go and take a break? Or do they want to take a detour? So are those people that's around you now, are they hurting you? Or are they helping you? Just as early on as kids, we're taught that you are who you hang around. And the truth is that there are some people, they won't be able to make this trip with you. And I know that it seems painful and it seems hurtful, but some people, they're not going to be able to make this road trip with you. They're always going to be negative. They're always going to discourage you. They're always going to tell you why you can't or why it won't work. And this will cause you to end before you begin. So you have to be cautious about who you're taking on this trip. I mean, think about it. You've went to all the trouble, all the effort, all the work to define your beginning, your starting point, your foundation. And you've done all this work to dig into your life, to get yourself healthy and get yourself ready. And you defined your destination, your dream of where you're going, and you've compiled this process of how you're going to get there. And now you need the people to take with you. And some of those people, sadly, will not make the trip. So I encourage you to find the people that are who you want to be and befriend them. Find people around you or in your life that you look at and go, these are the people that I want to be, and befriend them. Take them with you. Find the people that are already where you want to go and befriend them. They have figured out something. They have the right roadmap. They have the right path. They have the right way to go. Learn from them. Learn from their mistakes. They've already made it. So befriend them. Take them on the journey with you. The saying really is true that it's not what you know, but it's all about who you know. So, who are you taking with you? Maybe you've heard the old Chinese proverb, probably have. Most of us all have heard that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And so I just want to encourage you today, as you listen or as you watch this podcast, just start where you are. Pursue your purpose and your passion. Wrigley, Bezos, Jobs, they didn't begin trying to be Wrigley's or Amazon or even Apple. They began trying to sell soap, books, and computers. It's not how you start, but it's all about how you finish. Beginning has its challenges. It does. There's a lot of sacrifice, and there's a lot of work, and there's a lot of questions. But this is true that there's challenges at every checkpoint, at every part of life. And I would love to help you along the way. Did you know that you can use the link that are in the show notes, and you can schedule a free 15-minute personal consultation with me, and we can just discuss your dreams, your goals, your vision, where you are, where you want to go, who's on the trip with you, and just see how I can help add personal value to your life. And so I want to say thanks again for being a part of the Mind Your Business podcast. Of course, it's the podcast for whatever business is on your mind. And I want to ask you again that please, if this adds any value to your life, will you like, subscribe, and you can share this. This is so that we can make sure that we reach as many people as possible. So I want to encourage you, get out there, go begin. Start today where you are. Define your starting point, define where you're headed, and gather some incredible people around you to take on the journey with you. And I would love to be a part of it. We'll see you next time.